Am I the a-hole for wearing a wedding dress at a wedding? So my friend, 20F, and I, 19M, have been friends for a few years, and she recently got engaged. A week ago, I got a DM from her for a small costume party she was hosting as a celebration for her getting engaged. I asked if there was a theme, and she said there wasn't. I'm a cosplayer, so I had a lot of choices. I didn't want to rock up in an anime cosplay, so I thought it would be funny to go to an engagement party as the corpse bride. I arrived at her house yesterday, and everything seemed normal. A few people complimented my costume, and I was having a lot of fun. After 10 minutes, my friend's fiancé walked out in a black tuxedo and announced this was actually their wedding. Apparently, my friend saw a video of someone doing this and wanted to do the same. He asked us all to go to the backyard for the ceremony to begin. I went straight to him. I asked him if I should quickly go home and change my outfit, and that I would get back before it started. He told me it was fine since I didn't know this was the wedding. I trusted him and followed everyone outside. They got married and everything seemed good. The reception was just in their house again, so everyone just walked back inside and picked up where they left off. I tried talking to my friend and celebrating with her, but she kept making excuses to not talk to me. I assumed it was just because she was tired from the big day and wanted some alone time. I didn't bother her after that, and the party soon ended. I got home and half an hour passed when my phone started getting notifications. I checked and it was my friend texting me. She was cussing me out and telling me how I ruined her wedding. I was really confused and asked what I did. That only made her more angry. She told me it was basic knowledge not to wear a wedding dress to a wedding. I reminded her I had no idea it was a wedding and that I asked her now husband if I should change, and he said it was fine. She didn't respond, but I got a text from her husband. He asked why I would tell her he said it was fine. I told him he said it was fine. Then he said how I should have changed anyways, and it's my fault that the two are now fighting over this. I've tried texting her that I was sorry and if I had known I wouldn't have done it. I woke up today and saw her and her husband have blocked me on everything. So, am I the a-hole for not changing out of the wedding dress when I found out it was actually a wedding? Edit. I am a guy. I cosplayed the character Emily from The Corpse Bride and had blue paint all over. I'm also Australian, and I've never heard a costume party meaning fancy. Everyone was dressed up in funny costumes. Am I overreacting? My wife just got a positive pregnancy test. I've had a vasectomy for 15 years. So my wife of over 25 years just showed me a positive pregnancy test. I've had a vasectomy since just after our 18-year-old twins were born. She's freaking out about the pregnancy and the fact that I've had a vasectomy. I've been calm and supportive. I'm saying I'm fine. I really can't even think of a single time she has a chance to screw around. I'm going to make an appointment with a urologist. I am still freaking the fuck out in my head. This happened an hour ago and it's just weird. I'm 56 and she's 50, which is way too old to have a kid. Edit to add. Y'all are awesome. Someone mentioned perimenopause can cause false positives, and a Google search shows this to be accurate. Rare, but it happens. I've already mentioned it to her, and her doctor has her on the schedule tomorrow. The complete ending of freaking out on her part pretty much put my anxiety to rest. I'll update in case anyone wants to know. My girlfriend went to get milk, and I never saw her again. But it gets even crazier. I'm a male, 25, from the US, and my ex, 22, is from the Philippines. We were together for 4 years. Looking back, I guess I ignored things I shouldn't have, but I've always tried to be a trusting and non-controlling partner. I never wanted to be the kind of person who constantly worries about whether their partner is cheating. Sure, the thought crossed my mind sometimes, but I always told myself that it's not healthy to obsess over it. I wanted to let her live her life, and she never gave me a solid reason to think she was being unfaithful. We met in person multiple times, and we were in the process of bringing her over to live here permanently. But one day, she messaged me saying she was going to the grocery store and would be back later. The way she worded it felt off to me. So I half-jokingly replied, "It sounds like you're never coming back." She laughed it off, saying something like, "You'd think that, wouldn't you?" She never came back. She straight up pulled the old dad trick, left to get milk and disappeared. Her family was terrified, messaging me and asking if I knew what had happened. I was scared to death. I thought something horrible had happened to her, kidnapping, an accident, or worse. Seeing her face on a missing person poster was traumatizing in ways I still can't fully put into words. I cried, I panicked, I lost sleep. Then I found out she had left me for another guy. And honestly, that didn't even hurt as much as the fear of not knowing if she was okay. As much as it sucks to be cheated on, it's still infinitely better than thinking someone you love is dead. Once I knew she was safe, I just felt relieved. And then I started realizing she just wasn't a good person. Hindsight really does put things into perspective. Looking back, there were red flags I should have paid attention to. But what was I supposed to do? I tried to be a supportive, understanding partner while still giving her space to live her own life. And yeah, that can backfire. Some people are just going to do what they're going to do. At the end of the day, I know I did my best, and then things took a turn. Ever since this all happened, I've been talking to her sister, 23. She's been incredibly kind and welcoming to me, and she felt horrible about what her sister did. I asked if she had noticed any signs beforehand, and she told me that while there were small things here and there, odd behaviors, glances between people, nothing ever screamed infidelity. It was subtle enough that she never felt like she had a reason to reach out to me. When my ex finally did respond, she told her family she was never coming back. Then she told her sister to block me. But her sister didn't. In fact, she was the only one who really took up for me. She confronted her sister, asking, "How could you do this to him? How do you think he feels?" And my ex's only response? "He'll figure it out soon enough." That was the moment I knew, without a doubt, that she wasn't a good person. And it's funny because, throughout our relationship, there were moments where she'd say things like, "I don't deserve you." At the time, I thought she was just being insecure. But now I realize it was guilt. She was guilty of something all along. But what was I supposed to do? I'm only human. I can only do so much for a person. After a few months, I started dating her sister. Yeah, it's a massive turn of events, but I really do love her. She's a lot sweeter, a lot more talkative, and she actually makes me feel valued. But I had to ask myself, was I doing this just to get back at my ex? Was I with her sister as some kind of revenge? And the truth is, no. That's not why I'm with her. Has it crossed my mind that my ex might see it that way? Sure. And well, she must have, because she blocked her sister the moment she found out. So I guess in her eyes, we're both homewreckers now. But honestly, I don't care. Life is too short to waste on people who don't care about you. Am I the a-hole for telling my fiancé to stop being a brat? My fiancé and mom are fighting because my fiancé wanted a wedding at this lake in the mountains that she talked about before the engagement. We visit it every year, and it's almost tradition to hike up there and camp there, and there is more hiking past that point that we make a long weekend of it. My mom is not happy because she is not fit enough for the hike. Her family is because they are hikers, but my mom has knee issues and is overweight and cannot do anything too difficult. This hike is 6 kilometers to get to the lake, and everyone in the wedding party can do it. My fiancé agreed, but then wanted to do it in her aunt's backyard. Her aunt has the nicest backyard out of the people we know, but I wouldn't say it's still very nice. She said she was just going to buy some string lights and an arch and do it there. I have been to the backyard, and it's not bad. It just has garden beds and chickens in the corner, which my mom isn't happy with. My mom wants a formal location and is arguing the backyard spot is her punishing her from her first option. My fiancé denies it and says it's because she doesn't want to pay for a ceremony spot, and she thinks the backyard is prettiest spot that is free. We looked at some public parks, but they get very crowded, and renting them is already not an option, as they mostly filled up. My mom found a rental spot in a building with a decorative wall and benches that cost $1,200 for 2-hour rental, and is something she felt like is pretty enough for a wedding. This is the cheapest option other than the parks we come across. My fiancé refuses to pay for it, even though she agreed to half and told my mom if she wants to dictate the spot she needs to pay for it. My mom is taking it as her punishing her for not letting the wedding happen at the lake. They are arguing, and I think my fiancé and I each paying for half is an easy fix, and she is making it difficult for no reason. She refuses to make any compromises and told my mom if she doesn't want the wedding at her aunt's backyard, then she doesn't have to come. We argued about it as well, and I called her a brat because it's her way or the highway, and she called me an asshole. I don't know why this is such a huge compromise to her, but am I the a-hole?
A smiling stranger entered my apartment. Then I realized who he was. I am a 32-year-old woman, and I live with my fiancé in Texas. We live in a 2-story apartment complex, on the 2nd floor, on the outside of the apartment gate. We have never had any issues before, even though we aren't on the inside of the gate. We have 2 cats that like to roam around outside for an hour or 2 a day, so I usually let them out when my fiancé is at work. On this day, I can't remember if I locked the bottom lock or just forgot to lock it in general. I was sitting at the table painting and didn't notice the door had quietly been pushed open, and then I see the light on the back wall from the sun, and I turned to see a man had 1 foot already in my apartment. I froze for a moment, and just stared at this man that grinned at me and took another step and then another. I snapped out of it and thought, I can't let this man close the door, he is going to kill me. I jumped up and grabbed the closest thing to me, which happened to be an umbrella with a long metal sharp tip. I hit him with it repeatedly and cut his arm. He still approached until I hit him in the face and screamed at him to leave my apartment. I was not going to go down without a fight. The sharp tip cut under his eye before he gave up and left the apartment. I reported it to the police, to which they came and took a statement, and so far I haven't heard anything back, and that was 3 months ago. Reported it to management and they sent a letter to the residents. The other day, I was talking to my fiancé and I said, that man looked like the man that was stalking me when I worked at the mall. The one that kept coming back to the store and even waited in the dark, empty parking lot until I got off. I did share that story. I swear it was the same person. It had been a couple years, but I still remember him. I'm not sure how he knows where I live, and we can't afford to move. The cops do have the information. I'm scared, but I won't let him win. If he comes at me again, I am prepared. I won't go down without a fight. I've lived my life in fear of my family. I won't let this man win. I took my husband back after we divorced so that I could ruin his life as revenge. I found out my husband cheated on me in November. I have known this man since I was 5, been best friends for forever, and now married for 5 years. He decided he wanted a divorce. 2 months ago, he basically came crawling back and asked for our marriage back. I said, okay. Little does he know I'm saving $500 on his dime every month to leave him eventually. Little does he know I'm losing weight and getting my body in the best shape of its life for my future person who will never take me for granted. Little does he know I made a fake profile on Snapchat and added his father to it. His father is now cheating on his mother with the fake profile, aka me, which I will be sending all the screenshots to his mother after I leave. Normally, I wouldn't bring anyone else into this, but his mother decided I was in the wrong for her son cheating on me. Won't it be ironic? Little does he know I talked to my rental manager and signed a contract to leave that apartment, which is in my name, in December. Same week he will be gone on a trip. Won't it be funny when he comes back to new locks, his wife missing, his stuff in the dumpster, and nowhere to live? Oh, and did I mention his dream car is in my name because I had better credit? But don't worry, I've already started the process of selling it, and it will be towed to California that same week he's on vacation. I will never ever let anybody play me for a fool again, and I certainly won't let someone cheat on me and leave me only to try to pick me as a second option later. Who said revenge isn't sweet? Am I the a-hole for stopping my brother's proposal attempt at my wedding? Last weekend, I had my wedding, a day I had been looking forward to for a long time. Jess and I had planned everything carefully, and the day was unfolding just as I had hoped. Jess looked radiant, our guests were enjoying themselves, and everything felt perfect. Then, during the speeches, my brother unexpectedly stood up and announced that he was going to propose right then and there. I was completely surprised. I told him in no uncertain terms that the day was meant to celebrate Jess and me, and that his proposal attempt was not appropriate for the moment. He argued that this was his only chance, claiming he had been waiting for the perfect moment for a long time. While I understand he was excited and perhaps had been struggling to find the right time, I felt that my wedding was not the right place for him to have his moment. A wedding is very personal, and I had planned the day to be just about Jess and me. Later, some family members suggested that I had ruined his opportunity, and even my mother hinted that I should have let him go through with it. This has left me feeling conflicted. I do sympathize with my brother's feelings, but I also believe that certain days should remain focused on their intended celebration. After the reception, Jess and I discussed the situation. We both felt that while family matters can be complicated, I needed to protect the sanctity of my wedding day. It is hard to see someone you care about get hurt, but at the same time, I must stand by my decision to keep the day as I had planned. So, am I the a-hole for shutting him down and insisting that my wedding remain a celebration solely for Jess and me, even though it upset him and some of our family members? My best friend announced her pregnancy at my wedding after mocking me for being a single mom. So I, 32F, just got married last weekend, and what should have been the happiest day of my life turned into an absolute circus, thanks to my former best friend, Sarah, 33F. For a little backstory, Sarah and I have been friends since college, but when I got pregnant 5 years ago and chose to keep my baby despite the father bailing, Sarah made it her personal mission to mock me every chance she got. She'd say things like, "I can't believe you're going to be one of those moms. Who's going to date a single mother?" Or, "Your life is basically over now. Hope you like budgeting and stretch marks." She even laughed in my face when I told her I was scared about doing it alone. Eventually, I distanced myself, but she always found ways to pop back into my life. Fast forward to my wedding. My husband loves my son and has stepped into the father role beautifully. Our wedding was everything I dreamed of, until she took the mic. Right after our first dance, Sarah gets on stage clinking her glass and says, "I just have to share something special. Since she found her happiness after all her struggles, I guess it's time for me to finally announce, I'm pregnant." The entire room went silent. My jaw literally dropped. I saw my mom's eyes widen in horror. My husband whispered, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And before I could even react, people started clapping. Because what else do you do when someone announces a pregnancy? I stood there, holding back tears, while Sarah basked in the attention, rubbing her belly, which, by the way, wasn't even showing. She looked right at me, with this smug smile, as if to say, "See? I can have it all too, but the right way." My MOH grabbed the mic and bluntly said, "Yeah, wow, that's great, but can we please get back to celebrating the actual couple who's getting married today?" Some people laughed, others just looked awkward. Sarah pouted but sat down. Later, when I confronted her, she rolled her eyes and said, "I thought you, of all people, would understand. Pregnancy is life-changing. Why are you so bitter?" Bitter? Oh, you mean like how you mocked me for years and now you want sympathy? I told her she was a selfish, attention-seeking hypocrite and that she was no longer welcome in my life. She stormed off, crying, but I do not care. Now I'm getting messages saying I overreacted and that pregnancy hormones make people act weird, but I feel like she knew exactly what she was doing.
What is the smallest lie you've ever told which had the biggest consequences? 1. Once when I was a kid, I invited a kid that I bullied horribly over to my house for a sleepover because I was told I had to do something nice for someone I hurt by our priest during confession. I went to a Catholic school. The next day, after a pretty boring night, we were playing in the snowbanks and I lied, telling him my foot was stuck and I couldn't get it out. He ran well over a mile back to my house to get my mom to save me. Well, that kind of woke me up and made me realize, this kid isn't that bad. After that day, I never bullied anyone again, and 20 years later, that turd that I bullied so terribly is still my best friend, was the best man at my wedding, and the godfather of my first child. 2. In college, the girls in the apartment downstairs asked my roommate and I if we'd like to join them at a concert a month away. Neither of us wanted to, and my quick-thinking roommate said that date is my birthday. It wasn't, and we have other plans. They ended up not going to the concert, and we had forgotten about it, but on that date, they called me downstairs to help them move something. I opened the door, and bam! Surprise! A birthday bash with like 15 peeps. My roommate was shook too. I couldn't spill the beans, so I rolled with it. Got some little gifts too. I've always had this guilt about it.
Am I the a-hole for letting my daughter have her own bedroom? My husband and I have 3 kids, 14M, 13F, and 10M. We used to live in a 2-bedroom house where all the kids stayed in the same room and shared the same bathroom. There were many arguments about bedroom and bathroom space, especially amongst the 2 oldest. We have just purchased our first home and the house has 3 bedrooms. As my middle child is the only girl, I thought it would be more appropriate for her to have her own room and bathroom away from the boys, so I gave her the sole bedroom bathroom and the boys share a room. However, my oldest son has been moping about it ever since we moved in. He believes since he is the oldest, he should have his own room. I told him it is better for him and his brother to be in one room, but he is still complaining about having to share a room with a little kid and not having his own space. My oldest has started barging in my daughter's bathroom when he has his own with his little brother. I told him to stay out of his sister's bathroom, but he got upset saying he doesn't have a damn thing to himself. I grounded him for cussing at me. My husband later on went and talked with my son, and now thinks maybe our son is right and he should have his own room as the oldest. So am I the a-hole? Am I overreacting? My boyfriend hit me and I want to break up with. He claims it wasn't a real hit. Hi, this just happened about half an hour ago. I wanted to be a little silly, and I touched the neck of my boyfriend with icy cold fingers. I had been walking our dogs in the cold. I stood behind him. He turned halfway to me and hit with his fist against my thigh. Hard. It really hurt, and the pain lingered for several minutes. He apologized in the next moment, but I said right in this instant that I want to break up. Little background story. About 2 weeks ago, he already hit me lightly with his fist against my upper arm. Back then, we had an argument in public and he wanted me to shut up. It hurt, but not a lot, but the intention got me worried. We have a 6-month-old son together and live together. I need to know if I'm overreacting. Thank you in a day plans on Valentine's Day. I have been talking to this one guy since November, and we had plans last weekend to see each other the day after Valentine's Day. He canceled on Valentine's when I asked for clarification on what our plans were, as I asked him to make plans this time. He said that he was busy, so I assumed his grandparents were visiting like last week. They were not. He then spent the weekend with his friends and sent me a picture expecting me to be excited about the new game they were playing. Needless to say, I am quite upset at him as our date was the only thing I was looking forward to this weekend after a lot of tests, and he knew that. Am I overreacting to want to break up with him? He's been otherwise nice other than this weekend, but he isn't bringing up the incident other than saying sorry once. He also said he would play an online game with me. We are long distance on Monday, but he never did. I have no idea what to do.
There's something horribly wrong in my parents' house. Call me batshit crazy, I don't care, but I believe something sinister is in my parents' house and it isn't human. I moved back in with my parents 2 years ago after an accident that left my mom paralyzed and knocked my dad unconscious, but other than that was somewhat okay but barely able to move. Since then, I've been helping around the house as much as I can. Nothing weird or unusual happened up until 8 months ago. I've noticed strange things have been happening, such as only the top cabinets in the kitchen are open when I go in there. My mom is unable to reach the top cabinets due to her being in a wheelchair, and my dad rarely ever comes in the kitchen, but is usually good about closing the cabinets. I didn't really think about it too much as I believed it was just my mind messing with me. I was also hearing footsteps walking around outside of my door. I first that it was my dad going to the bathroom, getting a drink of water, or getting something for my mom. I then realized that my dad doesn't move around that much and rarely got out of bed at night. My dad wouldn't just stand in front of my door for 10 minutes and whisper. Then I noticed small things like $5 or newly bought chapstick and little trinkets my mom collected would go missing every once in a while. I thought someone else other than us was in the house hiding somewhere. After I checked all the places a person could hide, I didn't find anything or anyone suspicious. 4 nights ago, I woke up to a dark figure standing in my doorway. Its body was contorting in unnatural ways I've never seen before. It was horrific. My alarm on my phone started to blare, and I looked away to turn it off, but when I looked back at my doorway, the figure was gone. The only noticeable features it had was long hair, and the creature was skinny. I asked if I could set up cameras around the house, but my parents don't want me to. Nothing has changed. I still hear the footsteps walking around and whispering. I still see the creature. I close my eyes and I can still feel the creature's eyes burning to me. I brought everything up. Other than my mom's little trinkets, they have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm scared. I don't know what to do.